everybody. Hello, guys.
Hi.
Can you guys hear us in the comments? Can you please let us know if you guys can hear us? Okay. Can you guys hear us? I hope so. Okay, great. Okay, thank you so much, Mo. So this is Crypto Professor Girl. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. It is devoted to decentralized finance, cryptocurrency, and DRIP community. And today I have absolutely amazing person, very inspirational person, Kelly Snook. She's a creator of a Drip Rocket Science Telegram group, and also many people in the community know her as creator of really elaborate drip calculators. And I'm sure a lot of people got into drip because of Kelly's work, because of Kelly's calculators. So I would like to give Kelly an opportunity now to introduce herself, what she wants to tell us. Maybe she can tell us how she got into DeFi, how she ended up such a big prominent figure in our community, or anything else she wants to share in introduction.
I wasn't prepared for that, but that's okay. How I got started in DeFi is I'd been dabbling in DeFi, no, in crypto trading, just a tiny bit since like 2016, 2017. And I left NASA in 2011 and to do music, and then kind of ate through all of my savings. So I really had no safety net, and then COVID hit, and I was really facing I was facing two serious issues. The first is that I needed a way to pay my rent and to be able to afford to be able to have the time to work on my project, which really isn't a immediately lucrative project at all, and it's actually not even a project that's focused on making money. So I knew that I was going to have to go one way or the other. I was either going to have to get a job, which would take away my time to be able to work on the project, or I would need to find a way to generate income for myself that wouldn't require all of my time. And as well, the second part of that was that um, I I needed to learn about crypto economies because the project that I'm working on, that I need the time for, has at its core a crypto economy built into it. And I didn't really know anything about like detail how crypto economies work, about decentralized autonomous organizations, and really about anything at that point. Um, and so I I I heard about drip like in the span of a day or two. I got like three different articles, I think from Patrick Cryptozoa's work. This was in August of 2021, and I like in one day I got three different drip articles. So I looked at it and I thought, oh, this is kind of interesting. And then I told my friend Luke, who he and I had been trading crypto insights and stuff a little bit, and overnight he went and got into drip and then taught me how to get into drip, and it was really hard. It was really hard to figure it out. It was hard. It was my first time in a DeFi, um, in a DeFi project. It was my first time on a Binance Smart Chain. It was my first time doing a lot of things, and I didn't know what I was doing. And there weren't really very many resources to figure out what I was doing. So I was, you know, really struggling to figure it all out. Even with Luke talking me through it, it was still like it was hard for both of us to figure it out. And so Luke's drip buddy, whose name is Scott DeBevic, he encouraged me. He said, "You know what? You've just gone through this thing getting in. You should write an article about it." I said, "Well, I don't know anything about writing an art. I don't know anything about drip. I'm not going to write an article about it." He said, "Well, that's the reason why you should write an article about it." So I wrote from my first drip article on Medium was just about how I got in, and kind of from the perspective of somebody who was brand new at it. And then I decided that it was so great that I was going to try and figure out how to invest more money. And I needed a way to figure out how much I needed to invest in order to be able to pay all my bills. And there wasn't anything available to figure that out. So I had to make a calculator. And with drip, the drip protocol is very much very predictable. Doesn't really depend on what anybody else is doing. It just pumps out 1% a day drip, and so there are very few moving parts, and so it was something where it was possible to make a calculator, and the calculators that I'd found weren't really adequate to answer even my basic questions. So I I figured out how much I needed to borrow. I borrowed $10,000 from a friend, a very good friend, and and then it took, because I did it on a I did it on a centralized exchange called Uphold, and Uphold held my money for 10 days before I could invest it, and I didn't know they were going to do that, and I was really freaking out. And then but you know what is the best thing that ever happened to me, because during those 10 days I thought, well, I can't really do anything, so I'm just going to make sure that I understand the strategies for investing in drip. And so I built myself, I really sat with the calculator for just days, solid days, and I I put in different scenarios, and I tested out my intuitions, and my intuition were all wrong, it just really, really badly wrong. And I realized just how different compound compound interest really, how amazing compound interest is, and how the way I normally think is a linear way of thinking. So I I had that time, because my funds were frozen, to learn and to shift my thinking, and to really think through the strategies. And if I hadn't done that, I would have gone in just in completely suboptimal ways, having not really thought about it. Hey, Drip to Wealth. um, yeah, so that was kind of how I got in. I got in by trying to optimize my own investment, and by having a bit of time to to delve into it really deeply. And really, over the next few months after that, I was in it deep. I was spending all of my time on it, helping other people get in, helping people understand the calculator, helping people think in different ways that hadn't really been presented. The main drip channel was just telling people to put all their funds into one wallet, and just compound only, which is just a terrible strategy in so many different ways. And so I was kind of coming into it with a much more mathematical approach, I guess, than normal, and with some new insights. And I wrote that all up in a Medium article, and made a little YouTube video to describe the calculator. And so yeah, that was in the later part of 2021, and here we are today, a couple of years later, almost.
Yes,
um,
almost.
yeah, yeah. So I didn't. I really was a reluctant. I still am a very reluctant drip figure, because I'm just like everyone else. I really want to see it succeed, but at the same time, you know, crypto is risky, everything is risky. You don't ever want to be giving advice, getting people into something that's going to fail. And at the time, I really didn't know what was going to happen. But I was also really excited about it, and I felt very empowered when I had access to the tools that I was making, and that, I wanted other people to experience that. And I think when I helped people get into drip in the early days, I was really focused on helping people optimize according to their own needs. And I wasn't at all focused on, just trying to build a downline, or I'd never really even intended to build a team, but it just happened that way. um,
Yeah.
and what I learned is that, even though there's a lot of really impossibly horrible people in crypto, there's also some amazing, like so many amazing people, and the best of the best, really. And what I learned is that if you create spaces where people have an opportunity, or where people are called to be the best version of themselves, they're happy to rise to that challenge. And And that's one thing that's been really surprising to me, that crypto, and especially DeFi in these early days of all of this experimenting, people are, if nothing's expected of them, they'll sort of become lowest common denominator. But if you create spaces where people are expected to be really just nice to each other, basically kind and considerate and thoughtful, they are, and they're generous as well. And crypto and DeFi are not just about the code. They're not just about you know these protocols. It's not just the code versus people. It's really about people. It's about human beings and their personalities and their trustworthiness. And I really went out on a limb in those early days, just being fully doxxed in a whole world that I wasn't familiar with. But I think that doing that with my name, my real name, and my face, and my voice, and my real thoughts, and it's been super hairy. Like in the days of the Rex launch, for example, I really felt like my personal safety was at risk. But
Oh,
overall, it's mainly just been a really positive experience, allowing other people to just find some glimmer of trustworthiness in a fairly treacherous space. So I I feel like I've been rewarded much more than I've been at risk, and that's been a very positive experience.
very kind of you, Kelly. Um, I wanted just to follow up on some of the things you said. Like you mentioned, so you used to work at NASA,
I
right?
did, yeah.
So you are actually Dr. Kelly Snook,
Oh
right?
yeah,
If I'm not
yeah,
mistaken.
yeah. That's
Yeah?
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so Dr. Kelly Snook, are you astrophysicist by training?
Yes. Well, aerospace engineer, but I was astrophysicist at NASA. Yes.
Wow, I'm very impressed. And that's why we have Deep Rocket Science, right? Because it was
Yeah.
led by legitimate rocket scientists.
Yeah.
Wow, wow, wow. I could really relate to you when I discovered Drip. Um, so I discovered Drip largely due to, well, three people. So it's yourself, Brandon the Drip guy, and I also read a couple of articles on Medium by Cryptozoa.
Yeah.
And when I discovered you, I was like, I could really relate to this woman. I'm a scientist as well. So like I
Yeah.
could like she's a scientist. She used to work at NASA. You know, you kind of just had all the correct check marks. And then you were also very considerate and kind person. I'm like, I can really relate to this person. Um, so you worked at NASA. You actually had a career as a scientist before you went into music, you
I
said.
did, yes. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And so, what about your music career? Like, would you care sharing with the audience?
Hmm. Well, I've put most of my effort in two main areas. One is just in straight up music production, so helping people make records. So I have a recording studio, and I do recording engineering and mix engineering, and production and arranging. So I have a kind of a full service recording studio, and I produce independent artists. I focus mainly on devotional music, which is an area that isn't very commercial, but is a great service to uh, my religious community. So that's one area that I do with music right now, and the other main area is in music technology, developing new musical instruments. I'm a maker and a kind of like a systems engineer, and I've worked on designing new musical interfaces, especially for gestural music. Helped design the Memu gloves with Image and Beep, and these are gloves that allow you to control music with your gesture. Not just music, actually, music or visuals. Anything you can do with a keyboard and a mouse, you can do with the gloves through custom mapping your gestures to the musical parameters or to the software. So those are the two main areas that I've worked on.
Wow. I know you mentioned in the Drip Rocket Science that you're getting involved into the project that kind of combines, I guess, blockchain and music. And if I'm not mistaken, that's your ultimate goal, to build up Concordia. Are you going to
Yes.
tell us a little bit more about it?
Well, if you're interested, of course, it's my favorite thing to talk about, but I'm not sure if your audience would be all that interested, but I'm happy
Music and
to.
blockchain. We are DeFi people here, of course. And we have a lot of musicians in the community.
Well, it's not finance really. What it is like if you can imagine a VR game where you're flying through, um, you know, virtual worlds, and but then just imagine that everything that you see and you hear in the virtual world comes from data. So you're immersed and flying through and interacting with data through your senses. So through your visual senses and your sense of music, your brain's musical processing. So this data has been converted into visuals and into music, and people are used to the visual part, like data visualization. But if you can imagine data visualization and data sonification in a 3D interactive virtual world, that's kind of where I'm going with this. And then as you're flying through the data and you're learning about the universe as you're experiencing it through your senses, you are also all the time that you spend in that system, you're basically earning, like in a game, earning, think of like earning gold coins, but the coins themselves are actually fungible money. So there's an economy that rewards participation rather than and time spent in the world, and rather than monetizing the creative output. So you're basically rewarded for being creative rather than rewarded for what you produce. And in this way, I'm looking to shift a creative economy to have a kind of almost like a universal basic income for creative activity that then can be increased if what you actually produce is excellent. And so trying to figure out, how do you define what's excellent? How do you build a system that can't be gamed? How do you build a system that rewards in a just and universally accessible way um, creativity and excellence? So there's a lot of really deep philosophical questions, but as well as like pure technical implementation challenges to building this system. It's like if you can imagine learning about the solar system rather than just seeing like a picture of the sun with rings around it that are the different planets and having to memorize the planet's order. If you could fly through the solar system and hear it all and understand how everything is moving with respect to everything else just by what you're hearing, that's like a whole new way of teaching and learning and expressing and exploring the universe. So that's kind of Concordia in a nutshell. It's not built yet, so I've been actually working on it for 19 years now. So
Wow.
it's a lifetime, a life work that only recently, because of crypto, have I been able to start to think about working on it full time. So yeah, I'm just in that stage of shifting into making that my full time focus.
Wow. Wow. As I was listening to you, I mean, that was a lot to take in, but I'm really impressed. And some of the comments, a lot of people, for example, Drip to Wealth said, let me see, impressive. It's much easier to ask Kelly what she doesn't do. That's a much smaller list. Wow, oh,
Mm.
that just confirms my own personal view of you, that you are a great visionary, and that appears to run in the family. So I was looking at a wiki article about your, is it great grandmother?
Oh,
Um,
the one that, no, I don't know how she's related. Are you talking about the woman that taught Amelia Earhart how to fly?
yes.
Yeah, no, I wish she was my grand. No, I haven't been able to trace a family tree to her. I'm just assuming that she's a distant relative. I'm gonna adopt her as a distant. I'm gonna pretend she's an ancestor because she was deeply cool. Um,
I was like, it got to be her great great grandmother.
well, no, I did trace all of my great great grandmothers, and she wasn't that, but she's definitely a cousin of one of my great great grandparents, probably. So yeah,
Wow, you have some amazing gene pool, Kelly.
yeah,
I have to say.
I agree.
Yeah, so you mentioned in the beginning that so drip actually helped you to kind of leave your um, whatever you were doing, right? So I think music recording at that time, and gave you a little bit more time to work on Concordia.
Well, it didn't actually. I left before I found drip. So it just,
Okay.
I found it at a time when I was really starting to panic because I'd run out of all possible savings and I didn't have any plan for any, like I kind of made the choice to leave before I really should have. But I just needed to. I knew that I needed to. But I did find crypto, actually the pandemic came along at just the right time because it allowed me to just stay put instead of traveling around so much. And then it also, there was a really good, in the United States, there was a really good system put in place for gig workers. And at the time, I qualified as a gig worker because I was doing mainly studio, like recording engineering at that time. And so the assistance that came along at just the right time when I was starting to panic, uh, then gave me the time to learn about drip, and then drip gave me a really solid income. So yeah, and I was able to start digging out of the debt that I'd gotten myself into over the last decade before I discovered drip. I had amassed like a crippling amount of debt, just because I made the choice to leave a steady income before I really should have, from a financial point of view. So drip then just allowed me. I got into drip at a great time just before it built up to that its all-time high, and I already knew that the best strategy was to DCA out. So no matter what the price was, just every other day sell. Um, and that allowed me to get through, like I was able to plow through my entire crippling load of debt in just 2 months in January and February
Oh
of
yeah.
2021. So yeah, that was or 22, yeah, yeah, no, sorry, 2022. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that
We had
that
all-time
saved me.
high at that time, right? 197 at
Yeah,
some point
yeah. That was
in
just
January.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it got to the point during those months where I was starting to get worried. Like, up until that point, I was really living the reality of not having enough money to live properly. But then suddenly I was in a position where I had way too much money, if it were to keep going. But it didn't keep going. So all is well. Um, Even at the really low prices now, I'm able to pay my bills with it, and that's about it. So I don't have the problem of too much money, and I no longer have the problem of zero money. Um, so yeah, I'll be happy when the price goes back up, but it's definitely better, way better than nothing at the moment, and I'm very grateful for it.
So, the next question I had was related to the future of decentralized finance. So, where do you see this field going? I think if your musical project actually, comes to fruition, I do see it as integration of DeFi and music and learning and creativity. But in general, as a field, like where do you see decentralized finance going from here?
Um, do you want my real talk thoughts or my like pie in the sky thoughts?
I think we want the real ones. Kelly never lies. Like Kelly always tells us the truth.
I try. I really think that we are seeing. we're in the middle of the end of the dollar as the reserve currency. I think we're in the middle of the collapse of the dollar.
Okay.
And when the dollar really collapses and no longer is the reserve currency, I think crypto is going to be thrown for a big loop. And so I think there's going to be a period of panic and uncertainty, and where things are going to be all over the place. And, there's going to be this weird time when you can't actually use fiat anymore, really, and or I don't even know what's going to happen, but I think it's going to be fairly violent, and difficult, but I think what's going to emerge is going to be a much more decentralized and much more digital currency system and economy. Probably, maybe even a bunch of local economies rather than um, international. I actually don't know. I don't know that part of it, but what I do know is that it can't keep going the way that it is. It's just unsustainable what's happening, especially in the world of fiat. And right now, like, whether we like it or not, almost all of the biggest crypto TVLs are locked into the fiat system. They're either pegged or they're somehow reliant on that dollar connection, and somehow that's gonna probably become much more destabilized before it stabilizes. So I'm not actually looking forward to the near term economic situation, both the macroeconomic situation and crypto. DeFi, I think in particular, is just a tiny little like snippet of the larger crypto world. I think
Mhm.
DeFi also will see this destabilization, and the protocols that are tied to the dollar will struggle more probably. Um, but I actually know at least one team that I know well are really focused even now in rewriting their protocols so that they have some flexibility in which crypto coin.
Kelly? Oh.
Press the mute button. I don't know how long I was talking before. I used it.
It
Anyway,
was just it
anyway.
was like for 10 seconds. You
Okay.
disappeared
Oh,
just for
sorry.
10 seconds.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah. I was rambling. But I do think that DeFi in particular, I think it's going to move away from these crazy 1% to 2% ROI type of protocols that really all face the same problem of running out of room for growth. And it's a little hard to say like if there are any current protocols that are that are going to last for any particular period of time. Like, that kind of prediction isn't very possible, but I think that in general DeFi is going to move into a much more creative space, like what we see in the elephant money system, like
Hmm.
moving towards more sustainable protocols that require that don't just aren't just built solely on new deposits from fresh capital to sustain themselves. And so I think that protocols like Drip and Furio and Piston and these things, they serve a really amazing purpose. Actually, I'm going to say Flow. Drip was based on Flow. And
Yes.
Flow, it was sort of the first of its kind, and obviously there are real issues with every protocol, and then it gets tweaked and improved, and I'm super excited about the pace of improvement. So I think the other hallmark of this DeFi space is just a rapid pace of experimentation and improvement on models. I think that the ROI model might be nearing its nearing its end in terms of experimentation. Like a lot of people have tried and a lot of people have failed to come up with whole ecosystems that really work in that regard, especially at that such a high rate. What, like between 1% and 2% is just too high, I think, to be viably like so that they don't have an inevitable decline. Elephant money, like there's been enough innovation on that original model inside the elephant money ecosystem that that stands a chance actually of having a really long runway of all the systems I'm in right now. I think that one is the most interesting because of the extreme challenges it faced with the exploit and some of the really novel new major alterations or tweaks to the design. So that's a fairly high, that's a very high daily ROI on a stable coin. So we'll see what happens with that. I sort of look at myself in the space as an observer and as someone who is just interested in empowering myself and others with knowledge and understanding so that we can be part of the experiment.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. So you kind of started talking about it, but so what's your view on the future of drip? You know, given that, you know, of course, we've seen price decline, but we've also seen just absolutely amazing involvement of the community members. Until I started thinking that even if the developer checked out, the community maybe can carry the project on its shoulders. That's how strongly community feels about drip. We have basically probably 5, 6, 7 community projects that are being built on top of drip. We also have the DDD, which also my understanding was built by the members of the community coming out. So they are trying with utilities. We just recently got another utility by Spritz where you can pay with drip, right? Through, you can off-ramp, you can pay your bills with drip. So how do you think it's gonna affect drip? And what are your thoughts about the future? Obviously, you know, like I really don't have. It's great that there was a lot of experimentation, but I think some of these experiments kind of failed miserably. And my understanding is that you still believe in drip, and you still believe that drip potentially can survive. We don't know for how long. It might even thrive. So, what are your thoughts about it?
Mm, yeah.
It's a hard one,
My,
huh?
well, I think, I think that it's a double-edged sword with drip because there's no LMS system there. There's nothing to, it's just market forces. If the price is driven too high and lots of people come in at that higher price, then eventually, I mean, it's a, mm, the ideal situation with drip is for the price to stay constant. So let's say what has to happen for the price to stay constant? What has to happen is that 1% more every day needs to come into the system in order to pay out and keep the price constant. I think I think people might disagree with me on this, so it's just my own personal opinion. I think if the developer did check out, a lot of the community would also check out. I think I think that's because there's so many other protocols that are available where the team is very much engaged in continuing to build on the basic token. So if things didn't continue to be built by the developer on Drip and the developer abandoned Drip, I think that would probably spell a fairly quick decline. Um, I don't know if that's true for sure because what we see right now is all of these things, like you said, 6 or 7 things going on that are community generated. I think eventually no amount of of effort is going to be able to generate the kind of growth required to sustain the payouts. Especially the more money that comes in, it's great for now, and then that then puts a lot of burden on the future. So it is really a zero-sum game in terms of money in versus money out, unless there were to be sort of significant burning events or ways to reduce the supply other than through the protocol. So I know that that's what people are working on. Like
Mhm.
DDD is one of the things that the community is building that is going to have that effect. So but the thing is, they will really have to burn a lot of tokens in order to keep up with the demand of the payouts, and it's just going to grow and grow and grow, and the growing just has to outpace the coming in has to outpace the going out. And because that's really the only, there's no other mechanisms at play there that I've seen yet. I mean, there have been a lot that have been promised, but I haven't seen any of them in action. So it's really hard to say or to see how those are in reality going to affect the drip ecosystem. But it sounds good on paper, like what's going to happen with DDD. I am a bit dismayed that a lot of the like so-called use cases in many of these protocols focus on gambling. I really hate that actually because I don't gamble, and so I can't really participate in them. Even DDD is a form of gambling, so I won't participate directly. Um, but I know that a lot of people do, and so if they're designed properly, I guess they could have a good impact on drip. And I think my answer is that's a really long way of saying I have no idea. Um,
Okay.
I do know that I
You're
do
a true
feel.
scientist. You're a true scientist. You know, true
I,
scientists cannot be moon girls or moon boys. They're always
yeah,
skeptical and they're always prepared for the worst case scenario.
yeah. So I'm
I
I'm
hear true
obviously
scientists talking.
yeah. So I'm planning for the worst. Like I'm planning all of my projections and sort of my plans base themselves on a worst case scenario. So I don't know what the exact floor is for drip right now or in the future, but I just, I don't assume that it's going to go up at all. I do hope that it could go up a little bit and then just stay constant. I think that's a pretty reasonable expectation for the near term. I think all of these things, though, are going to have a limited lifespan, and eventually it will just not be able to keep up. I don't know how long that is, though. Uh,
Well, your calculator
so
was for 6 years, right?
yeah, but that's the only reason that was for 6 years is not because it wasn't because I thought that that's how long drip was going to last. It was because that's how long it took to compound one drip to max payout in by doing it every other day. And it's actually 7 years every other day, um, claiming and hydrating. That's why I made it for that long because I wanted to see if you just put in the very minimum amount, how long does a wallet last and what happens to that drip.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
So I just wanted to add, as we talked about, you mentioned that, all these developments right now are happening. I do want to give a shout out to several projects by the DRIP community members. So I believe we have here DRIP to Wealth, and they're doing something really cool with the drip marketing DAO, where they're trying to market drip to Asian markets, which has huge potential. We have here DeFi strategy that started actually three, I think three projects, brick by brick, Guardians of the Reservoir, Hellhounds, and all those projects support Drip, and send actually burn drip, so send drip back to tax vaults. We also have, well, we did mention the triple D, and I might be blanking on some projects right now. I think that the drip coach has a project that he's working on as well. Driptopian is doing Foodtopian, which integration of, I think, some sort of a restaurant, like a pizza place that he's trying to build up that also will be potentially burning drip. So there are so many things that are going on. So maybe at least we can sustain the price of drip for some time. Like I know you said that, well, you don't really expect that it's gonna go to all-time high or that it's gonna go up, but with all the efforts by the community, maybe we can at least sustain it at some level. I remember reading drip rocket science at some point, and you said like, well, maybe if drip could get to like $1, $2, $3, $5 and like stay there for some time, um, that would really prolong the life of the project.
Yeah, I'm only now seeing the comments, so thanks, guys. Thanks, Mo Crypto 777.
Yeah, Drip Coach has changed 360. Yeah, so 360, I think it's integration of health and wellness project. So, and there are, I'm sure, other projects in the development and some that I didn't mention. But so you started with Drip, right? But then you
I
moved
did.
on to some other DeFi projects as well. And so you are in several projects right now. You did mention one, Elephant Money. Are there any other projects that you are currently in or maybe currently optimistic about?
Yeah, actually, I'm an advisor on the ARC project, which is derived from Drip and Furio and Piston, and tried to learn all these lessons that it was launched right at the time when Furio was really failing and or really struggling. The community was very distressed, myself included. I actually had advised the ARC team not to launch then just because the sentiment was so low, and the last thing we wanted was another ROI DApp. But the ARC project is kind of like what I wish Drip had been. So it is basically Drip, but with lots and lots of sustainability tweaks built into it. And I think it's really brilliant. Remains to be seen. You know, it's still early. It's in its early glory days. It's in the days where there's like a buffer. You know, Drip in the early days had a lot of tokens, a lot of supply in the vault that from all of the initial deposits. So when it launched, we had a good year or so where there was no minting happening because there was a buildup of reserves there for paying out. And then it got to the point where it had to start paying out. And that's where we are right now, where it's minting new tokens every time the vault gets to zero. Well, ARC is in its early days, and so it does remain to be seen. It's much, much newer than Drip, but you know, it's another effort by a really talented team, very dedicated, hardworking team, and I think, you know, a trustworthy team. I don't I don't know for sure, you know, nobody knows in crypto, but like I think it's a really valiant effort. They're really trying, and the community is really engaged, and the reserves are doing well, and the project is very encouraging. So that's one project that I'm in that it's so similar that I've been talking in my Drip Rocket Science group about that, like just trying to help people understand what are the differences and what are the things that have been put into place to make it more sustainable, to make it a better protocol. So that's another one that I'm in that I really like. I also really like Rex, but I think Rex has been hit hard by the bear market, and it's a much more long-term, much less flashy, much less complex, not an ROI DApp. So it's just a CD. And so that one, you know, remains to be seen. Time, we won't really know how it's doing for a long time. So yeah, there's Rex, Elephant Money, Arc, and the other one that I'm really excited about is City of Atlantis. Um, this one is very much real world focused, and it's focused on creating jobs in the real world, which I think is something that's missing from many of the DeFi protocols, and I'm super interested in it just in my own development, in my own project, because it's got this very strong connection with the real world businesses, real world services, and brick and mortar companies and stuff integrated with the DeFi economic models. And so I'm super interested in that one and encouraged just at how hard that team is working to figure these things out. And they're really plowing completely new fields. They're trying to figure this all out. And so I'm watching that one really closely. I'm heavily invested in that one. So those are some of the ones I'm interested in. Of course, there's a litany of failed projects that I aren't as much worth naming, but those are my main
The ones.
my eyeballs are on those. Yeah, and my money is in those.
Okay, thank you. I just also wanted to mention a couple of projects that I haven't that support drip. For example, Droplet. Droplet burns drip, sends drip to tax vault as well. Animal Farm. Animal Farm, we have the drip BUSD farm in the Animal Farm, right? Also supports drip. Um, Sorry guys that if I forgot to mention, and change 360 with the drip coach, right? So well, thank you, Kelly, for the project. And again, I really appreciate that you have sort of like a healthy dose of skepticism when you talk about all these projects, including
I
drip,
do.
right? You're like,
Yeah.
well, we have to have A and B condition in order to C to work, or we need to have A plus B plus C in order for D to happen. So like,
Yeah.
as a true scientist, you're not. I realize like you're not a moon girl, or
No.
basically, and that's why I think people have a lot of respect for you, and a lot of people have followed your strategies that you suggested in the Drip Rocket Science group. Because they realize that you are never gonna say 100x, 1000x, we're going to the moon, let's go. That's not Kelly.
I'd be like, Yahoo! We're doing a 0x. Yeah, it would be amazing if we just went flat and stayed there. I can really see why Forex decided not to implement an LMS. We could see in Furio what happened when that liquidity management system failed, and when they tried to apply it when it was too late, and all the things that they did that didn't quite work. Really, really hurt people, and so I can see why Forex just like, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This has been working for forever. It hasn't been attacked. Introducing anything new is going to really be risky. So I admire the tenacity to just stick with the way it is, what does work, and resist the urge to break it, basically. So I'm happy that drip has been what drip is for so long without too much change.
Well, am I correct that Drip has been primarily paying you bills for over a year?
Yes, for 18 months. So, yeah, about
18
18
months.
months.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, a lot of the protocols that you mentioned, I've taken a look, and I'm also invested in some of the protocols that you mentioned, but I think longevity is at least one thing that Drip has that others don't. Like, oh, City of
definitely.
Atlantis, interesting project, but I cannot do
Yeah.
anything with their pearls. I can
No.
claim their pearls and just keep them in the wallet,
Yeah,
right?
we can't do
Or
anything with it
elephant
until
mining.
like 2024. I think fall of 2024 is when City of Atlantis is going to kick in. So yeah, it's definitely long term for sure. And
Yeah.
elephant money as well. We have to wait, we have to wait for the elephant treasury to
Oh,
grow. So, there's a lot of waiting.
a lot of waiting. Yeah. I
Yeah.
particularly have a somewhat negative experience um, with the trunk because I'm like 1,600th person in the line of the other 2,000 some hundred people waiting to
Yeah.
get my trunk back. And I just,
Yeah,
that part, I think there is a huge psychological component in a lot of those protocols.
definitely.
And when protocol changes and suddenly you can't withdraw your money's, I mean, when
Stuck.
I brought
Yeah.
you my money, I willingly, you willingly took it, right? But
Yeah.
then you can't get it back. Like you have to wait
Yeah.
months and months, maybe years to get it back.
Yeah. I had that experience with Animal Farm, which is why it's not on my list.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I think
Yeah.
people asked. Maybe there was some a comment about Animal Farm. Oh yeah,
Oh,
Animal
okay.
Farm was paused for several months.
Exactly. Many months. Yeah, and more than several. Yeah. Yeah.
So definitely Drip will be your favorite, not the Animal Farm, at least in Forex projects.
And Forex projects, yes. It's definitely not my favorite of favorites, no. But it's definitely my favorite of Forex projects, for sure.
Okay. I also wanted to ask you about this question that I asked on my series about women and DeFi. And I named it Women in DeFi. So what do you think we can do to bring more women in DeFi? Because it doesn't seem that we do have many women in this field.
Well, I think it's just a matter of teaching more women about it. But also, what I've been trying to do, and we can only do what we can, but I've just been trying to create spaces that are safe for women, which is actually not easy to do in DeFi. It's been really difficult to fight that battle, and it really is an uphill battle. I have to do pretty extreme things like not allowing certain words in my rocket science groups. Like, I don't allow people to use the word bro. In some countries, in some cultures, that's really a term of endearment, a term of respect. But in crypto bro culture, it's really, really toxic for women. So there's a lot of things like that that I do in my spaces to try and make, at least make rules that people have to abide by that go a little ways towards creating a less toxic culture for women. I mean, culture is toxic for women everywhere, but especially in crypto. So that's one thing. One way that we can attract more women is by making our spaces more less toxic and more attractive. Um, that feels pretty restrictive to some people, and so they just end up having to opt out if they're if it's too restrictive to require people not to be toxic. Um, and defining what is toxic is not so easy, especially in an international, intercultural, intersectional community. And I think it's been a learning experience for myself, even just learning of my own use of language, because language is kind of mostly what we have in these chat groups is what is
Yes.
the words we choose. And so really thinking carefully about language and how language, how when you shift language, it can shift culture. And so to some people it seems like, oh, it's just politically correct, but it's really not. It's actually about shifting our culture. And these shifts in culture can sometimes be pretty quick or they can be slow. I think this one shift that has to happen to make it a culture less toxic for women is going to be it's a long time thing. But I feel like even in the space of a year, the rocket science groups are creating spaces that people feel are a little more relaxing, a little less stressful and difficult to be in. And so I guess that's what I'm trying to do. And I think if everyone is conscious of that, then that can shift things a lot faster.
Yeah. One thing that I noticed is that, like, you don't have FUD in your group. You have constructive criticism of projects.
Mm,
So, you know, there is no name calling, no derogatory, well, you really try, no derogatory remarks from participants. And, we're never going to attack personalities. We're
yeah,
only suggesting improvements to the protocols and the
yeah.
ideas for compounding, ideas for hydration, ideas what are maybe other new protocols out there. But it's never going to be FUD. There is never FUD in your group.
Yeah. Well, there is sometimes, but there's no rule against it. But there is actually a rule against saying things that aren't true. So, the rule is you ask yourself, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And will it
Yes.
contribute to the growth of everyone involved? And those are kind of Buddhist principles, I guess. But um, you know, I find that I almost never have to delete any messages that are FUD, like FUD. I do sometimes quite tyrannically delete messages that have personal attacks or are just ugly or toxic. And that's, that's a little bit anti-free speech, I guess, but it's also just with the ultimate goal of creating safer space for people. And sometimes people don't even realize that what they're saying is an unsafe space. So I try and do it with love. And most of the time it works out okay. But I also, it's a lot to ask of other moderators in the group too. So I have to choose the moderators really carefully as well.
Yeah, you
Does
have some
anyone?
amazing people there. You have
It's
some
true.
amazing people. Yeah, you have
Yeah.
Emmett. Shout out to
Emmett.
Emmett in many
Yeah, he's
groups.
the best. He's the very best for sure. Yeah. At first, actually, what I was doing is I was only choosing women as moderators.
I remember.
Just but in the end, everyone can be an advocate and an ally for safer spaces, and Emmett is just amazing. So I have seen though, even Emmett gets his buttons pushed. It's
Yeah.
everyone's human. So we all just try and look out for each other and try and look out for the overall culture. It's been actually a real challenge as the group grew. In the end, I stopped posting the link anywhere because it was just too many people. Most people are
Well,
like, how
several
can we get more
thousand.
people? It's like 2,000 people or something. It's a lot.
I think it's 4 now.
Is
So
it?
I think so. I think I'll double check. Maybe do we
Oh,
have
I
anybody
don't.
here maybe in the chat who can tell us how many people we have in our let's see. Okay.
Well, there's a bunch of different rocket science groups as well. I don't
Yeah.
really keep
Yeah.
track of. I don't really keep track of how many people or anything like that. I just focus mainly on making sure the space is safe and has good content. That's really what's important to me.
Some people here, I don't know if you can see comments, but we see people saying that they really appreciated your multi-wallet strategy in Drip. I
Mm,
think Chewy say thanks so much for the 10 Drip wallet strategy. Followed it since I started last year. So
mm,
um,
mm.
I remember you saying that if you are in Drip, you cannot just be with one wallet.
No,
Being in Drip
exactly.
just
And then,
implies
yeah,
multi-wallet strategy.
exactly. That's what's really important. And I think I feel like I'm blue in the face from saying this, but any strategy is a multi-wallet strategy. So I did not introduce this. It's just a reality. It's just how it is. The question is, do you start with the multiple wallets or do you just have to catch up later and try and get more? And it's just much smarter to start with them and much better for the protocol too. This is something that we really spent many months gnashing our teeth over, but I'm really convinced now, especially after seeing the way the ARC protocol is thriving in the face of like supporting this idea of splitting your initial investment. It really just gives the overall system a much smoother trajectory of growth. Um, oh, have I lost you? Can you hear me okay? Oh, there
Yes,
you go.
yes, I'm
Okay.
here. I'm
Okay.
here.
Yeah. Yeah, so,
And
but you're welcome. You're welcome, whoever made that. I'm just sitting here with my eyes closed because I have a bit of a headache. So I didn't,
oh,
I didn't, I didn't read any comments recently. So
oh, I'm
yeah,
so
but
sorry.
no, that's okay. Not at all. It's
So
just
people,
easier not to look at the screen.
Mo is asking here, and Mo, by the way, is actually supporting multiple. He's one of the individuals who's supporting multiple uh, initiatives to support DRIP. And
Excellent.
yeah, he has a question for you. If you have a video on the 10 wallet strategy.
There's no 10 wallet strategy, but I did make a video about my calculator, which lets you calculate. Um, I don't hear the noise anymore. Did you just mute your microphone? Because I don't. Are you hearing me? Okay,
Yes,
okay,
yeah, I'm trying
okay.
to mute
Actually,
myself.
stay. Don't mute yourself because then I don't know if it's been disconnected. That
Okay,
way,
sorry.
I'm kind of relying on your room noise to be able to know
Okay.
that you're connected. Yeah. So there's no 10 wallet strategy per se. I personally have never created 10 wallets, but the calculator has what was kind of created to be able to compare for yourself how your investment will perform over time in various scenarios, including the number of wallets you choose to split it into, and including the way the price changes, or including the schedule that you choose for claiming versus hydrating. All of these things are, kind of moving parts in the calculator that allow you to experiment. And so being able to see what happens if you take the same investment of, say, $1,000 and you put it in 5 wallets or 1 wallet or 10 wallets, just to be able to see how that performs over time. It's really easy with the calculator. And so the video that I made ages ago, I'm sure there are actually some big inaccuracies in the video by now, because the protocol actually changed radically after I made that video, but I just haven't had the wherewithal to go and make another video. But that video that is in, so if you go to my calculator, there's a link in the calculator to a YouTube video, and that YouTube video talks through the calculator and really gets into some of the reasons why splitting your investment into more than one wallet at the beginning is advantageous. It mainly focuses on how it's advantageous to you. At the time, I hadn't really spent a lot of time thinking about how it was advantageous to the protocol, and there was a lot of like misinformed reaction to this idea by the powers that be, that I just had to kind of ignore. But yeah, I am going to eventually, hopefully, finish the article and the calculator and the numbers to show how it's beneficial for the protocol to do that as well. Yeah, but yeah, there's just a lot of non-understanding individuals that are somehow against this idea. But yeah, it's just math.
So, given that a lot of people have more than one wallet,
Mm-hmm.
how large do you think the community is? How large is Drip community?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't even followed lately. I don't know how many wallets there are, but I would imagine an average of 4 wallets probably is pretty
Per person?
accurate. There's probably loads of people that just have one wallet, and then some people that have a ridiculous number of wallets, and then but most people who have more than one wallet have between, I would say, 5 and 20 wallets. It's just a complete like marginally informed guess of how many people is if you just divide the total number of wallets by 4, maybe, or 3.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know.
There is a
I've never done a
question.
poll.
Sorry. There is a question for you here. If you started with one wallet and now you're near 20K, I'm assuming 20K in Drip tokens, would you start a new wallet? And how many?
I always would start a new wallet well before having 20K tokens, but I would have started before, well, how many depends on how long you want to be in drip, and you can just put it in the calculator and see how long the wallets will last. How many really doesn't affect how much you earn, because if you put $1,000 into one wallet and $1,000 into 10 wallets, you'd be making the same amount every day, regardless of how many wallets there are. So it's really just a matter of being kind to your future self, so that your wallets don't max out too fast, so that you have a lot of headroom to grow. If you think of it as giving yourself headroom, the more wallets you have, the more headroom you have, the longer they can go without having to take the proceeds from one wallet and put them into another wallet. You kind of want to avoid that. So just design for however long you want to be in drip. Because it's just a heavily taxed version of the same thing. If you wait until you've got a lot of tokens in one wallet to start taking those wallets and put into the next wallet, you lose basically 19% by doing that, because 10% to claim and 10% to airdrop, versus if you just split the investment in the beginning, then you can just keep growing it, because they don't get to the max out.
Right. But that's an ideal situation, right? What if they didn't read your article and
Yeah.
didn't look at the calculator? So
Well,
what
I
if
would say,
somebody has already 20K? Like, what would be there? Like, what would you advise somebody in that situation? Somebody who already has 20K. and they want to start new wallets, like what would be the ideal in
I think having it sort of it literally just depends. Like I wrote in the ARC white paper, you can see a version of this, and you can also see it in the pins in Drip Rocket Science. Questions to ask yourself when you're trying to figure this out. And it really depends on your own financial goals and your own personal goals, how many wallets and how much you invest, how much money you have to invest in the beginning. It really just depends. If you're talking about just cascading, I call it cascading, the tokens from the one wallet into new wallets, I would say you know 5 or 10, something like that, because that means it takes, if you just put them all into one new wallet, then that wallet is going to max out really fast, and it gets faster and faster and faster. If you've ever walked through the scenario where you start with one wallet, and then when that wallet maxes out, you open a new wallet, you don't even get 3 layers down in that cascading before you have to have multiple wallets open anyway to catch all of the maxing out wallets tokens. So it doesn't, it's actually the more you can wallets you start, the more time you have before you have to do it again and lose another 19% of your output. I don't know if that makes sense.
okay
This would make much more sense with some visuals and
with
some
the
nice
calculator?
plots and the calculator, yeah, which is in the article that I'm planning to publish eventually. I've been promising Brandon to do this for ages because I need to show that it's not costing that people having multiple wallets isn't what's responsible for the troubles that Drip is having in the price. You know, it's just absolutely not. But I need to be able to show numbers. It's much easier to back up what you're saying with data and information than it is with just opinion. So I've actually have worked through these scenarios, but not lately. And so I will eventually publish this. It's just right now
Pe-
my life is very full.
People are saying numbers don't lie. um,
Yeah, exactly.
Numbers don't lie, and Kelly's
Yeah.
spreadsheets, rocket scientist spreadsheets, don't lie. She has really good training in stats.
Yeah.
So, Kelly, what message would you, if you could, maybe give a message to the developer of Drip, Forex Shark? Like, what would be your message?
I don't have a message for Forex.
Okay. What about the community? Do you have a message for Drip community?
Yeah, I would say don't wait for the price to go up to sell. I think it's a really important um, philosophy to think of your drip investment and think about DCAing out. So don't pay attention to price. Don't try and time the market. Just claim and sell as often as you can. Um, but not all the time, like not 100%. At least I think a goal of like 50-50 claiming and compounding is a good target. Get your money back out. I know there's so many people in the drip community that maybe aren't in drip science, rocket science, or haven't heard me go on and on about this. It's just really important to get your money out then and not to just compound. I feel so sad for the people that compounded all the way through the drip, $200 drip. You know, that was just heartbreaking. um,
Yeah,
so yeah, so don't and now even it's actually you can still ROI, it just takes a bit longer, and the price can always go down. Regardless of price, I think my main message to people is to just pay yourself.
first. Pay yourself first.
Pay yourself first. Yeah, like they say in the ARC on the ARC team. Pay yourself
Okay.
first.
Okay. I mean, I think this is a very good message. I remember actually, you had an audio chat with Polly Baker
Oh
around
yeah.
January 15th of 2021. And you, 2022, I'm sorry,
2022.
2022.
Yeah.
And you said, guys, these are glory days of Drip. These are
Oh,
golden days of Drip. That's what you said.
I'm glad somebody remembers that, because I remember when I said it, like, you know, mark my words, this is glory days. Yeah.
And that's when you said, please use the alternating strategy, alternate your hydrations and your claims.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people listened, but I did. And I
Oh, I'm
thank you,
glad.
thank you from
You're
me and
very
my
welcome.
family.
You're very welcome. Yeah, I thank myself every day for that.
And I mean, you proposed multiple strategies, like every other day claiming on hydration, or 6 days you hydrate, the 6 day.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, 5 days you hydrate, 5 days, fifth day you do nothing. I'm sorry, 5 days
Hmm.
hydrate, 6 days nothing, seventh you claim, or you just
Yeah.
maybe claim once or twice a month. I mean, you proposed a lot of different strategies for people to try out to
Yeah,
do
and
the DP.
actually, back in the days when Stampede had the same mechanics as Drip, my friend Nina built a Stampede calculator based on my Drip calculator, and she discovered this really optimal 21/7 strategy, like a schedule that really works for Drip as well. So if you don't need the money right away and you want to grow fast, but still have like a really sizably growing monthly income, then just doing, doing 21 days of hydrating and then a week of doing nothing and then claiming at the end. That works really well for Drip as well. It's a different kind of optimization for growth, um, but also allows you to pay yourself, and it quickly outpaces the 50/50 um, approach. So uh, major credit goes to her for discovering that 21/7 approach. It doesn't work in Arc or Furio or any of these other protocols where 24-hour the emissions stop after 24 hours, but in Drip it's really, really great. But
Thank you for
100%
mentioning it.
compounding or 100% compounding or 100% withdrawing are definitely not optimal for sure. Yeah, you're welcome.
I think a lot of people benefited from these strategies that you were describing.
Mm, mm, I hope so. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. Um, well, I know it's been tough on you, especially you had a headache, so I really appreciate that you came. But
That's okay.
I don't know, do you have like any final message for the Women in DeFi series? Anything else that you wanted to share with us?
No, I don't have a message for the women. I have a message for the men though, and the
Okay,
or the
okay,
not
we'll take it.
or maybe the yeah. I have a message for the men is to just be more conscious of inclusivity in language and in culture, and I think that's a place where the men can really make a huge difference. And the more inclusive men we have in our spaces, the more women will start to see feeling safe to come out.
I think this is a great message and great way to end this conversation. So, I would like to thank everybody who came. I see a lot of people who regularly come to this, and thanks to Mo, thanks to Legacy 7 Crypto, to Sabrina, to Drip to Wealth, to Raymond Ali, um, to Jonathan Rosario. Thank you guys. Sorry if I didn't mention somebody, but I saw all of you, and thank you so much for coming, for your comments, for questions to Kelly, and of course, my huge thanks to Kelly. I really wanted to get her. Uh, it took me months, but finally it happened, and I'm really
Thank you for
honored,
your
Kelly.
persistence. Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for persisting. I know it wasn't it wasn't easy to get me to pin me down, but I also am just really grateful to what you're doing and to your commitment to women in DeFi. That's a really, really admirable goal. It's a shame that women have to be the ones to advocate for women in DeFi. And so my invitation would be for more men to advocate for women in DeFi. Um, so yeah, that's a huge service you're providing to the community. So thank you for doing that, and thanks for having the conversation at a time when I could make it.
Absolutely. Well, I guess we're going to go ahead and end the broadcast, and I hope to see you guys again. Thank you,
Thank
Kelly.
you. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Bye bye,
Bye bye.
everybody.
Bye.